Yesterday marked the centenary of the publication of James Joyce's Ulysees. It's an event that deserves to be commemorated and recognised by this state. Over the past 10 years, we've engaged in a lot of commemoration. When you think about the important historic political events we've commemorated, we've seen commemoration of the Irish involvement in the First World War, the Easter Rising of 1916, the meeting of the First Dáil in 1919 and the War of Independence. All of them are commendable political, military events that deserve to be commemorated. However, we can't just view the progress of the Irish state in terms of political or military developments. And that's why I think it is very important that we recognise the publication of Ulysees, the centenary of which took place yesterday. If you look at international commentary on the events I've outlined, you'll see that the event that got much more commentary and recognition internationally was the publication of Ulysees by James Joyce. Recognition of that, I suppose, needs to be given to Sylvia Beach and the Shakespeare Company in Paris that published his book back in 1922. Let's be clear, that book wouldn't have been published in Ireland, and there was great difficulty getting it published anywhere. So Miss Beach and the Shakespeare Company deserve recognition. It was a remarkable literary achievement when you think of what Joyce delivered. The study of Ulysees and indeed the works of James Joyce has gone through an extraordinary transformation over the past 40, 50 years. I suppose back 40, 50 years ago, Joyce was regarded as a bit of an intellectual oddity. That has changed significantly now. We can now see that he was one of the great literary figures of the 20th century. In fact, if you look at the 20th century, literature probably was the dominant art form in that century, and James Joyce was its Michelangelo. We should be extremely proud of the fact that he was an Irishman, and I'm extremely proud of the fact that he was a Dubliner as well. We also need to note that his work isn't just of benefit and of use for those who are literary scholars. Each year, huge numbers of tourists come to Dublin, and they come here because they have an interest in James Joyce and they have an interest in his works. And we need to recognise where the state is failing in its duty to commemorate and to support that memory of James Joyce. We can see that there are some events which are protected. We have the James Joyce Centre, which a member of the Houses of the Oireachtas has been instrumental in protecting over the years. We also have the James Joyce Institute. But I believe the state should be doing much more, Minister. And I suppose let's look at a couple of clear examples. First of all, there's the house down in Usher's Quay where the Dead is based, one of his great stories from Dubliners. We seem to be acting as bystanders and looking at that house, and we need to recognise that that's an important part of Joyce's history and Irish history that deserves to be preserved. Also, if you go out to Sandycove to the James Joyce Tower, it seems to have a very limited role played in it by the state. That should be a shrine for James Joyce. It's something that we should value immensely as a state. I remember a couple of years ago when I was on Dublin City Council, that we had a huge task of work trying to ensure that Sweeney's Chemist out the top of Weston Row here remained open because of a rates bill that was being imposed upon it. So, Minister, I think we need to do more as a state to commemorate and protect the memory of James Joyce and his literary works. And I'd be very interested to know what the Minister for Culture has planned in order to ensure that that occurs. And I look forward to hearing your response. Thanks, Cahirla.
Minister for Topical Issues.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Deputy O'Callaghan, for raising this very topical and also interesting issue. As you know, the centenary of the publication of Ulysees is arguably one of the most important literary centenaries in the history of the state. And while this year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of a great book about Dublin by a great Dublin writer, as you stated, it is also a huge moment in international writing. The Government is providing a range of supports to commemorate this iconic publication at home and abroad, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, keenly aware of the importance of Joyce's artistic legacy internationally, are supporting an innovative programme of events around the world with our missions at the centre of many of them. We know that France and Ireland have a strong and historic cultural relationship, and this year our countries jointly celebrate the centenary of the publication of Ulysses in Paris. The Centre Culturel Irlandais, CCI in Paris, is presenting a special 5-month season of centenaries, celebrating the centenaries of the publication of Ulysses and of Irish statehood. This Joyce season, alongside other special initiatives by Embassy Paris, formed the cornerstone of Ireland's Ulysses 100 celebrations in France. Here at home, the Museum of Modern Literature Ireland have developed a wonderful programme of events which was launched yesterday to mark this special centenary with support from the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht Sport and Media and the Department of Foreign Affairs. The Ulysses 100 digital platform developed by the museum will be a fantastic resource and will gather and promote centenary events happening across the globe, as well as collecting the centenary for archive and future research. This will make it easier than ever for the public to access information and find out how they can get involved in the many wonderful and eclectic projects happening across the country and the rest of the world. Hugely ambitious Ulysses 2.2 project associated with ANU and Landmark Productions has been funded by the Arts Council Open Call Award and represents not just a looking back at Ulysses, but will engage a huge gathering of artists across art forms to look at ourselves today, at a changing and diverse Ireland that is every bit as complex, messy, mischievous and beautiful as Joyce presented it in 2022. Particularly encouraging is the inclusion of young audiences in the Ulysses 2.2 programme. They are also hosting an exhibition called Love Says Bloom, which opened yesterday by author and curator Nuala O'Connor. I would like to mention the James Joyce Centre, who have a wonderful programme of events to mark this centenary and has been supported by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. They also have a programme which includes innovative ways of engaging children with this great work and also programming and exhibitions which will bring Joyce and Ulysses to life for so many. Ulysses offers us many tourism opportunities, as you said, Deputy O'Callaghan, with visitors keen to walk the streets of Joyce's rich characters and visit those places made iconic by Ulysses. Our rich literary history allows us to promote a unique tourism offering, and Dublin was named the 7th best city in the world to visit in 2022 by Lonely Planet, specifically calling out the centenary as a key reason to plan a visit to Dublin in 2022.
Thanks very much, Minister, for your reply, and I'm very pleased to hear that there is progress being made in terms of the commemoration of Ulysses, and I welcome the detail contained within your answer. Obviously, James Joyce had a difficult relationship with Ireland, I think it is fair to say, and he probably would be surprised that in a national parliament we're standing up commemorating the publication of his great book 100 years ago. I don't think he would have envisaged that he would have had the support and the appreciation of the Irish people, which is manifested by us all today. I think we might also, Minister, need to look at doing something bigger to commemorate James Joyce, and maybe you might mention some of these ideas I have back to the Minister for Culture. My ideas are good or bad and they could be rejected, I don't mind, but I do think we need to do something significant to commemorate him. One idea I have is that you travel around the world, you go to Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, you go to John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. Why don't we call Dublin Airport James Joyce International Airport? You know, it would give a real indication of the appreciation and the value we placed on a literary figure. It would also be a slight shift of emphasis as well away from our very dignified historic past where we commemorate people involved in politics or military struggles. There'd be a certain irony as well with Dublin Airport, a place where people leave the country, being named after James Joyce. Also, finally, a more contentious issue. And I'd be interested to hear what people like Deputy Durkin have about this. I went out to Zurich a couple of years ago, two friends. We got a tram up the mountain to the Flunturn Cemetery. It's a lonely place up the back there, and you go into the cemetery, you go through a gate, and up the back of the graveyard is Joyce's grave. Lonely spot, very few other graves around him. I know when he died, Nora Barnacle was interested in his body being brought back to be buried in Ireland. I think that is something that we should give consideration to. I know it's a contentious issue. I know people may disagree with it. He has no family descendants alive to object to it. But I think we as a country need to give recognition and thought to bringing home our most famous child.
Ulysees,
Deputy, you've offered a lot of ideas here, and as I said, Fáilte Ireland has supported the Bloomsday Festival for a number of years, and I know that Tourism Ireland has also developed an innovative programme around this particular centenary this year by reaching out to the global audiences around the world. And as you can see, and you've said, that this momentous centenary is being marked in many different ways with the support of government, and I look forward with yourself to the rollout of this programme. You said that Joyce had a difficult relationship with Ireland, and I suppose when you see the amount of people who left over the last number of decades, that a lot of them had a very difficult relationship with Ireland as well. And I always had a huge interest in Tim Pat Coogan's book, Wherever Green is Worn, and I have a huge interest in the Irish diaspora, be it in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United Kingdom, the United States. And you know, last night you saw Celtic playing Rangers, and the Celtic is a club of which I've supported many over the years, and you know, where Brother Walford Cairns came from, Ballymote in my constituency, and they are equally as Irish, and they feel so. I think the James Joyce Airport is interesting. Sometimes we have to look at all the young men and women on the last decades that have left as well, and maybe it could be an idea to remember whatever airport, Knock Airport or Shannon Airport or Cork Airport or Dublin Airport, of the people who left. And I think we're in a much better space, to remember that. But your idea is interesting, and James Joyce Airport it's certainly worthy of consideration. Thank you.